Yes, good morning. My name is Michael Hauschild, and I've been asked to be the moderator of the discussion of the first part of the day. So, after hearing about the introduction to the project, how it started, the Big Bang from Martin, and Cornelis' presentation of the whole structure, the floor is now open for any questions or comments that you may have. So if you could please be careful to speak into the microphone, and please start introducing yourself and tell us where you come from.
I'm Robert Ayers.
I think it's not on.
Turn it on, is it working?
Hello.
Is that better? Yeah, speak.
I'm Robert Ayers. I still work, even though I've been retired for 14 years, at INSEAD, which is a business school. And I was also part of the original committee that did some design thinking about this project.
I think you must point the microphone. Yeah.
Like you want to swallow it.
Anyway, I'm quite impressed with the reorganization of ideas that were presented here. But I have a comment about one thing, which is that there's still quite a bit of overlap between the prosperity and the social well-being. For example, in the social well-being, jobs, I think, was mentioned. Whether you are employed or not is certainly an important factor, but unemployment is also a very important factor in growth theory. And so there's one example. Inequality, I think, is also in both places. And nothing to be done about it today, of course, but I do think that more research needs to be done in that field.
Okay. You are pointing there to one of the discussions that we had in the project. I don't know if anybody wants to comment on that now.
I'm happy to do that. Yes, indeed, we had internal discussions until the end, for instance, about this employment issue. But let me go back first to the environmental area. There you have also that certain substances have different impact. For CO2 has impact on climate change, and that has impact on environment, on human health, but also on ecosystems. And in the same way, also more employment can have impact in two ways. It leads to more prosperity, clearly, and but it also leads to kind of valuation. And we had a discussion on whether, let's say, we had a discussion whether that is more on valuation than just the extra income. Why do people want to have a job? Is just because they are more prosperous, or also because they are valued and have a different, doing work gives meaning to life. And how important these two elements are, but they are both elements. And one ends up in prosperity, and the other ends up in social well-being. So it's recognized, but especially, as I said, the social well-being pillar should, in these terms, be still much further developed, because we know from literature how much more happy people are if they have a job or not, but whether that is related to just prosperity, just because they have more money, or also where there's the value, is different to separate these two elements still.
Thank you. That's a question over there. Please wait till you have the microphone.
Thank you very much. I tried not to eat the mic.
Thank you.
My name is Ad Hofland from DSM Coating Resins. I'm active in research, and I always get very scared when people say this book is written for non-technical people. Is it also readable by technical people?
Yeah, I don't know, Ellen, you want to comment on that?
Yeah, that's a very good question indeed. We had this discussion, of course, a couple of times, like how technical should it be, how much terminology should we use or shouldn't we use. Well, I'm a technical person myself, and I have to say I still quite enjoy reading this material, because it does provide a lot of detail and a lot of technical background if you're looking for it. Whereas if you are a non-technical person, maybe you don't notice these subtleties and you just read over it. So yeah, I think even for a technical person, it does give a nice overview of all the results that have been achieved, and especially for the very technical people who want to have more detail and more information, we have provided exactly for that person these links to actually easily find the deliverable that you are looking for to find this information. So in that way we hope to sort of cover both types of people.
Okay, thank you very much. In that case, I'll take a couple of extra copies.
Sure.
My name is Claire Mays and I'm the dissemination partner in the ProSuite project. And I'm a social psychologist, and I have to say that these have been 4 years of trying to learn what sustainability is and what life cycle assessment might be. And having read the handbook 8 times last week, I have to say that I suddenly understand. I understand what ProSuite has brought that's new, and I also understand that I am not going to be capable of sitting down in front of my computer and applying the freeware, the software, which is part of the ProSuite output. But I do understand from this book what would happen if I did sit down in front of that computer. So.
Yes? Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Bernard de Gavel from RDC Consultant in Sustainability Assessment. I would like to know, this methodology is for new technologies. Why is it only for new technologies and not for evaluation of any product or materials or systems?
As my question builds up on this one, maybe I can... Okay, so before you reply, yeah, indeed I was going to ask something similar. I mean, the idea was to assess the new technologies. In the presentation I've heard until now, I've more heard about a new approach to evaluation technologies. So my question is, what is your reflection up to now? To what extent this new ProSuite method will be able to solve the issues of future non-existent technologies? Which are the main issues at stake and how did you solve it?
Yeah, maybe I can start a little bit on that, and then maybe others can follow in. I think we will hear more about this afternoon or later today about the the more specific contents, and I think there it'll also become clear. Of course, the ProSuite methodology is also applicable to existing technologies. I mean that's quite clear. I think the big challenge was to say new and future technologies. How do we assess those when in fact they're not even here, and what do we compare them to? And there have been some activities, research activities in the project, helping us to, what can you say, look into the future, come up with ideas of how will new technologies, how will these technologies look, and what will their impact be on the economic system, and of course also the social and the environmental. So there are activities in ProSuite that specifically target this challenge, which is that it's not an existing technology. We cannot go out and monitor. We cannot go out and study it as it is. We need to have some elements of foresight in, for instance. I don't know if anybody has something to add. Okay. There's a question there.
I'm Steve of the Thünen Institute, Germany. I'm just browsing through the handbook, and when looking at the case studies, I think the bio-based economy is something which is quite high on the agenda these days. And when looking at this example here, there is a term called biorefinery. And the reference case is coal power. And the prospective technology is anaerobic digestion, which is actually not really new. And so I'm wondering, in terms of how could support ProSuite this kind of transition to bio-based economy, when the example here is not really kind of addressing the issues of the broader concept of biorefineries.
So your point is the focus on the energy side and not more broadly on the chemicals from the biorefineries?
Well, chemicals or food additives, or just name it in terms of bio-based economy.
Yeah, maybe I can react to that. The methodology which was developed is equally also applicable to really groundbreaking technologies. So second generation, third generation biofuels. We were somewhat confined also by the consortium. I mean, we wanted to have industry involved, and basically, depending on what they were interested in, some of the case studies were chosen. But that does not mean that we could not go beyond biogas. And actually, Lex Roos has looked at the case of DSM, which is a bit more novel, looking at new resins for coatings. But indeed, one could go even beyond that and look at technologies which are not even, which are basically just on the blackboard or in the design stage.
Creatable plastics.
I mean, 10-50% of feedstock is biomass in chemical industry. It's not new.
Could I ask you to repeat?
Oh, sorry. I just, sorry Martin, but in chemical industry, in terms of feedstock, around 10-15% of biomass is already used. I can't see the point in calling it a new technology.
Yeah, but still you have certain areas which are far from commercialization, where also there are big technological challenges, where the question is whether it makes sense. Think about aromatics use from biomass, aromatics production from biomass. You could question the very need of it, and then various technologies to make it. So I think there are a lot of open questions there.
We can discuss it.
Okay.
Maybe I could add a little bit, also coming back to Mr. Rakela's question. What is in ProShoot special on new technologies? And there are two important elements there. One is that we have a work package, actually the starting work package. Work package 1 is characterization of technologies, because that is critical for new technologies. So you cannot say you have an existing technology, you take it from the shelf, and you have all the characterization, you put it into your models. You first need to characterize the new technology. The second is there is a scenario tool so that you can determine market penetrations, etc. of new technologies. So that makes the ProShoot tool special for new technologies, but as said several times already, the basics can also be applied to existing technologies. And another point is we have discussed it, how far should you go, but we have at a given moment said we only can study new technologies as soon as they are materialized in new products or services. So we cannot answer, okay, like what will the bio-based economy be more sustainable than the traditional economy, if ever that exists? That question cannot be answered. But you can look at, okay, specific products or a group of products, and are they more sustainable than the traditional products? These are the questions that can be answered.
I'm Mariko Susana from the USF. I have a question to the environmental assessment. It was mentioned that the basis, the starting point was the LC impact, and my question is, how does the approach now fit together with the EU PEF, and will there be some kind of harmonization between the recommendations between ProSuite and EU PEF?
I would like to give a try on the first half. I think maybe we should ask Michael to answer the second one. So the first part, what happened is that ProShoot was running very much in parallel with the LC Impact project, and the LC Impact project, for those who are not familiar with it, had a strong focus on development of life cycle impact assessment methodologies, looking at the environmental dimension. So you can say part of what we're addressing in ProShoot. And it was decided quite early that most of the new developments, you can say, in the environmental impact assessment side would come from LC Impact, to the extent that these were successful, of course. There was a few activities going on, for instance, on exposure to nanoparticles, but apart from that, not much in the ProShoot. And the ProShoot methodology as it stands now is developing or delivering characterization factors both at midpoint and at endpoint in the environmental impact pathway. The midpoint factors are taken from the ILCD, so this is the ILCD methodology, and the endpoint factors are largely, a lot of them come from LC Impact. It varies from impact category to impact category, and you can see that if you go into some of the background documentation. So this is the situation for what is the ProShoot methodology and the environmental dimension. And as concerns the coordination with the PEF, I think I'll hand that on to Michael.
Yeah, this is a very good question. It's one of the questions I have in my list of questions. The point is I'm not able to reply now. I would like to postpone this question to the afternoon session. We will have the panel discussion, because first I need really to understand the details of the process before giving you an answer. But keep the question for later, okay?
Thank you. Yeah.
Jürgen Musch, Advanza. We are a polyester fiber producer in Germany. I am interested to understand in which of the categories is the impact on biodiversity covered. Because for me this is also an important point for all those bio-based products nowadays. Thanks.
Yeah, the impact would be on the ecosystem health, so on the natural environment, and it can be addressed through, well, depends, it depends on what way it goes through. If you have impacts through land use, for instance, physical use of land, it'll be addressed through that midpoint category. If you have impacts caused by the extraction of water, it'll be through that one, but it'll be covered in the, well, classical environmental pillar.
Paolo Mazzoni and yes, Paolo Mazzoni and I had two questions. One was related to the present technologies, and so the relation between ProSuite and the PEF, but okay, I understand that will be discussed better this afternoon. About the new technology instead, I would like to understand if you see any possible relation with the framework that is now discussed at the research level in terms of responsible research and innovation. If you see any possible relation between the ProSuite methodology, how this can help the development of responsible research and innovation.
Yeah, say this is exactly one of when we started the project, we first asked ourselves, okay, who are our target group? What type of decisions are we going to support? And we move a little bit away from, say, the traditional LCA that primarily was, and it's broader now, but primarily was product and service oriented. This is more about entire technology areas, and we said, okay, there are three basic areas. There is social decisions on new technologies. Which area are we going to? Sometimes you have a bifurcation. Do you go for renewables or for nuclear, for instance? And what is then? How can you make these choices? The second is for companies. Say, and do I want to develop in, for instance, into bio-based feedstock or not? Say, these strategic decision making. And the third is exactly innovation programs, R&D programs. Before you embark on developing something completely new, first do the assessment of, okay, what do you expect it will bring?
Okay, Freddy Linke from the consulting company Carbotech. The one part is always the methodology, the other part are the data behind we can use. And we know that from LCA, Now I just wonder if there are also some work done, for example, to database, let's say, for example, if you spend €1 in a certain sector, what will be the influence on labor or things like that? Are there any background data also developed during this project?
Yeah, I think we'll hear more about that this afternoon, but maybe, I don't know, Richard, would you be able to say something about that?
Yeah, thanks for the question. Yeah, we actually based database off a previous EU project, which was a multi-regional input-output modeling, the XRPOD project. And what we have basically is, we'll hear about the details of it later, but yeah, we have a version of that that becomes publicly available through this project. So there's certain limitations that you have in it, but then you still can do the kind of analysis that you want. So, yes.
Yeah, thank you. Niels Jonkers, IFAM, University of Amsterdam. Yeah, the sustainability world used to be simple. We used to worry only about three things: people, planet, and profit. We had methods to analyze this, some more advanced than others, but okay, there still is LCA, social LCA, and LCC. Now we need to worry about five things. Is that really a message of ProSuite already? That's, well, in my opinion, we haven't been stressing resources enough so far, and human health not enough. So there was a real reason to bring them to the forefront, and now we have these five key categories to consider. Anyone want to comment on it?
Yeah, as I said in my introduction, it was not the intention was not to make things more complicated, but to make things more clear and to say we found the traditional framework, people, planet, profit, how catchy it may be and how long the tradition may be. We found it difficult to translate is something concrete and comprehensive. Say that there is too much, I talked about the overlap between the various categories. I talked about unclear separations, and we think in this system we have really something that is where we have five things that can very clearly be defined and separately elaborated. So to some extent there is a concern about the number of indicators, of course. We also, as I said, when we had to take the decision on separating out social in one or two, we decided to keep it in one category. Otherwise you would get too many indicators. It's clear that 7 or 8 or 9 that would be unworkable, but I think 5 is still overseeable.
It's not only a matter of the amount of.
It's not only the amount of indicators that you show. It's also really a communication tool, of course. Yeah. And it's essential that if you show 5 indicators, that well, people are gonna draw completely different conclusions. Yeah. So it should be really not just well, I'm not sure if I make myself clear, but
no. Say
the communication will be different. With
that's clear. As you said in your first question, human health, for instance, will now human health is something in the top category, whereas in the past it was hidden somewhere under the environmental impact. And the question is whether that is justified. And we have done our first weighting exercises. You will hear more about that today. And then you indeed find that human health is important and gets sufficiently high weighting to bring it to the forefront. But maybe after weighting exercise we can continue this discussion.
Hello, Benoit Huger from RBC. I see the handbook that for social well-being, for example, you have qualitative and quantitative indicators. So I wanted to know how you deal with that, how you get a single score for social well-being.
And I'm sure you'll hear much more about that in the afternoon. But the question is if somebody wants to say something about it now.
Andrea Ramirez, Utrecht University. Yeah, I will speak 10 minutes about that, and that was a main question for us when we were developing the programs, because there is a point where we don't have the data, or it's not in fact right now how you measure trust, and do you get a number of trust for a whole chain, for a new technology in 2030. So what we have done right now is take a more simple approach. The quantitative indicators go into a normal aggregation methodology. The qualitative indicators get flagged and goes with the final results. So when you see the final results is results on a number plus some flags that the person can click and say, okay, and those are really for the qualitative indicators. We could of course artificially transform that into Likert scales and try to aggregate it, but then the meaning was lost because it's an ethical question, because it comes with a survey about specific geographic circumstances and project management. So we decided we would do both. And it was important that the information was carried out through the results without getting into a number. At that point, the number was not that meaningful. It was what you wanted to say with the indicator that was meaningful. And I spoke without them. Sorry.
And that inspired a number of questions.
Susanne Dupont. I have a question. About the input data. The Pro Suite is covering 5 impact assessment categories, and I'm assuming that when you look at especially novel technologies, that you need on a case-per-case basis collect a lot of input data. Is there a guidance how to access and collect those data, and where you can get information on, let's say, for example, societal input data that you would be needed to kind of complete the study?
Yes, there is, say, you need indeed for all these assessments, you need huge numbers of data. Say, and there are some families of data, say, for environment, for everything for which environmental impact assessment and environmental life cycle assessment. There is a lot already, so we could reuse a lot of that. For economic assessment, there is a lot in the area of input-output analysis, and there are well-established databases, and they were made accessible for the project. And part of that could also be used for the social assessment, so that was a very nice spin-off in the project. But in addition, there were also a number of, especially for occupational health, new assessments had to be done, and guidance has been provided there. And also we also had a special, I think it was called a cookbook, for data gathering for the social well-being assessment. So part of it is already there and can be reused, part is new.
And it could be linked through Pro Suite, so if I go to Pro Suite,
Yeah.
I can access
You
those
find,
kind of data.
Yeah, you find there, say, a lot is in the decision support tool, and a lot of the qualitative stuff is in these cookbook type of things. They're all accessible via. The cookbook is also on the website, Andrea?
Yes, it is.
So everything is accessible through the website.
Collect guidelines.
Thank you.
We have time for 2 more questions. The first one goes to Michael.
I saw ants in the back, so I don't want to steal time. It's a very quick one. To what extent the Pro Suite is Eurocentric? Because LC has been criticized to be Eurocentric, and as many production processes, so occupational issues happens not in Europe. My question is.
Well, I'll give a quick bit here, realizing that we're talking about a life cycle perspective applied on all dimensions. The ambition has been to make it not Eurocentric, because as we know, well, even simple products will have processes going on in parts of the world that are outside Europe. So the attempt has been to make as large parts of it as possible global. I don't know if anybody has something to add. Okay. Then the final question before the break.
Good morning, everybody. I am Catalina Hidalgo from Fundación Chile, so far away, no Eurocentric. And so that is exactly the question that I have. Is regarding how we can apply this methodology and approach for a country like Chile, who is far away. And for example, I have been reading regarding the weighting factors, and those are very specific to a specific situation that you're looking at. Can we apply those weighting factors for a country like Chile or another one in the world, or maybe we can modify those weighting factors according to the reality of?
Yeah, you will hear more about the weighting this afternoon and how the weighting factors can be derived. So you can definitely develop something that's applicable for Chile there. But I think the fundamental elements, which are a bit more cut in stone, like the impact assessment factors, that's where we've tried to take a non-Eurocentric perspective. So I think you'll find a lot that's useful, not least from outside Europe. And I think with this we have, in the interest of time, to break. There'll be plenty more time during the day to ask questions, and I think you'll have much more content also to ask questions about later on, because you've only just heard the introduction now. So the coffee will be served in the lounge next to us, and please be sure to be back here again at 11:05, because otherwise we'll be losing some of the lunch later during the day.